This video today is sponsored by Factor, a fantastic meal service that delivers directly to your door with special curated meals for you. Factor's products are excellent. They have significantly less waste than most of their counterparts. They taste way better than most of their counterparts as well. Can attest, have had them multiple times. And most importantly for me, they allow you to track all of your macros, your calories, know exactly what you're eating so that you can fit it into your diet properly. Factor is just really simple. It's really convenient. It's fast. It's a vary, which is important when it comes to different kinds of meals, and just knowing everything I need, the protein and the calorie levels especially. It's great to think to myself, okay, I have this much left in the day. This is perfect. Pick it out of the fridge, microwave it, bam, done. Bingo, bango, Germanano. And if you would like to try this convenient meal service, go ahead and go to factor75.com, link in the description, and use code Bricky50 for 50% off your first order. Factor75.com, Bricky50, description, check it out. Thank you for sponsoring this video. Hello, everybody. My name is Bricky. Currently just stoked that someone shares my very specific interest in attractive white-haired robot women. Is this what it's like when a closeted furry finds out that other people also liked what they liked, like the first furry realized that they have a group? Just this feeling of like, yes, someone gets me. Thank you, Yoko Taro. And Germans. Hey, Bricky, I found this indie game I think you'd like. Hey, Bricky, are you gonna play Signalis? Hey, Bricky, have you heard of Signalis? Hey, Bricky, have you finished those errands? Have you finished those errands? Have you finished those errands? All of these words were said by one particular Austrian fan of mine, and for a while I waved it off. Classic case of, I'll get to it when I get to it. Signalis, what does it even mean? It's not a word, is it? Like Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance. The memes. So I type my way up to Signalis and I see anime. You know my feelings on anime games. There are some exceptions. This is a pretty clear anime art style, and I'm just normally not a fan of that. But it had those two words, those two damn words. Overwhelmingly positive. Okay, you got me. Overwhelmingly positive is such a kryptonite for me, right? Never the best games, never the most popular games, but always a game I end up enjoying. Signalis came out last year. It is an indie game developed by Rose Engine, which are two German developers. They also have two composers for the game as well, but for the most part, it is a tiny little group. And then the first thing I see when loading up the game is some parts of this game may be considered violent or cruel. Okay. And this is the main menu I'm greeted with. Okay. You've got my attention. Signalis is a genre of game that I can't quite figure out what to call yet, where we have created terms like a Metroidvania. This follows the lines of Resident Evil 1 and Silent Hill 2. It's the type of gameplay where there is, say, a big door that needs a bunch of keys, or the funny statue in the Resident Evil 2 police station, and you need to collect all the things that can open said door/statue. This involves going into rooms with enemies with a very limited ammo and inventory capacity to then grab items that can be used or combined to then open doors or utilize objects you previously couldn't. It's a lot of inventory management, enemies getting back up, and backtracking, but in the reasonable and not annoying way that, like I already said, Resident Evil and Silent Hill do it. Normally that area tends to open up into a larger and larger area, expanding the map to a significant degree until you get all the things you need for that special door, and then you reach a new map or area that will expand in such a way. If we use Resident Evil 2 as a more recent example, you have the police station, then you have all the underground sewer areas, and then the big bio lab is the final one. But Signalis doesn't start this way. No, its intro is rather subtle. Have a command saying, wake up, and see yourself come out of a sort of cryopod on a spaceship. The perspective is top-down, isometric, with this really old, like, PS1 style graphics. If the graphics here turn you off, I wouldn't really worry about it. You get used to it real fast, and I think it's actually kind of a genius way to have a distinct art style that is properly budgeted for indie devs. This is functionally the tutorial of the game, but serves also as a great way to introduce the world and how it operates. I don't know the name of this either. I would go with something like retro sci-fi or CRTV sci-fi is something I've heard. Basically, sci-fi in the way of alien movies where everything is on a static layered screen with big blocky buttons for menus. Everything is like, what would sci-fi look like if all we knew was the 70s? The game's inventory and information tab looks like this and is just oozing with detail that is shared throughout the rest of the game. Anyway, you learn how to use your menus and map as you navigate around your spaceship. This is part of something called the Penrose program, a special program based around long-range planet colonization. On board is Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, and they're about to present to you one of the biggest letdowns for a film I have ever seen. Absolutely stinky. The Penrose ship has two crew, a Gestalt, aka a human officer, and an Elster unit. That's you. LSTR-512. Elster Model 512. You and your ship have crashed in the frozen wasteland of some planet with your sexy white-haired human officer nowhere in sight. So you venture your way out into this planet trying to find your lost captain, coming across some ruins in the snow and eventually gigantic perfect hole in the ground, which you descend into the red floor and find another hole in the hole, which you climb into because, you're psychotic, I guess, and then arrive in a room that has books, a safe with a ton of locks on it, a wall where your hole used to be, bright red light streaming from the door, and a copy of The King in Yellow, a collection of short stories written by Robert W. Chambers in 1895. Then we get our title drop. Okay. I think I'm in. This is the part of the video where I tell you to piss off. I don't even care if it affects my watch retention. Signalis is in my top 3 games of 2022 behind Elden Ring and God of War, and it might actually be Elden Ring. I haven't quite decided yet. But Signalis is also a heavily spoilerable game, speaking of made up words. Not as bad as Outer Wilds, but there is still plenty of this game that I feel you just want to put together yourself. So leave, buy the game, beat it, and then come back. It only took me 10 hours for my first playthrough, and it's only $20. Do yourself a favor and play the game. It has my full recommendation. If you're not sold, don't care, or already played it, I will have a second spoiler warning later into the game for mega spoilers, but for now, I'm disappointed in you. As you can see from the game's title drop, it isn't particularly a straightforward game. It's confusing, cryptic, psychologically taxing, and often open for interpretation. The intro feels like one of those situations where it's completely disconnected from the rest of the game, despite the fact that it's not. It feels this way because immediately after the title drop, you are now located in the bathroom of a major mining facility known as S23 Sierpinski, and Chapter 1 starts here. Your goal, as you know it, is simple. Find the girl in the photograph. Find your pilot. Get to safety. However, Sierpinski has gone awry. Things aren't right. Security camera is following your every move. Bodies are just littering the halls with some infected growth despite them being robotic. And the save station is a terrifying red TV that you will grow to love. Terrifying red save station sound effect, my beloved. Here begins the overall gameplay loop of Signalis. You will find yourself a pistol and some ammunition, and this is where your resource management comes into play. When I say this is like Resident Evil 1 and 2, I mean that it's nearly identical. If you are familiar with those games, you should feel right at home here. You have your pistol and magazine in an inventory slot, spare ammo in another, and when equipped, you aim down the sight and a little box on the enemy gets smaller and smaller, increasing its damage output the longer you hold it. The enemies don't have a reliable amount of health. Sometimes it's 2 shots, sometimes 4, and when they're down, they start doing this weird like, and you gotta stomp on them. Of course, you have healing items for yourself that take up an inventory, and things like stun batons as a secondary attack that take up inventory. Now, see, for me, I'm most familiar with Resident Evil 2's remake, as I didn't play, or at least don't remember playing the original Resident Evil games from back in the day, but my natural progression was to kill everything on sight. Then, as I moved from room to room, they would eventually get back up, and ammo is a resource. So it started changing to run around the enemies. Then it became use ammo on the important enemies, and then so on. Like I said, you'll feel at home here. One thing though that I really like about Signalis is that the puzzles and natural progression of a zone feels not only, well, natural, but makes you feel like a genius for doing rather simple things. Every time I find a door that says locked, requires administration key, and then I go check all the other rooms and find the key, I think, oh yeah, now I can go to that door, which in turn holds an item or puzzle that can unlock another door and get me another item, and so on. A fun yet simple puzzle is that there is a safe in a classroom that is malfunctioning, always moving back to its original startup code. So when you find the instruction manual for the safe, the initial code is there and you can open it up. It's early in the game, so it's not that hard, but even easy puzzles like that, they feel so fulfilling. Actually, that's not really much of a puzzle. How about a different one? So you find an X-ray machine and you can cycle through multiple objects laid out. One of them being an odd key card in this thing of rock or putty or something. In another room, there's a key card copier and you can find a blank key card in a similar area. So using the X-ray, you can see exactly how the card is formulated and therefore recreate it via the machine, adding it to the list of 5 keys you need for the big door. Now that is just a singular example of the well-crafted dopamine drip of this game. I don't really know how they do it. Perhaps it's just something about this genre that I adore, but every time a puzzle is solved or a key card is grabbed, I just feel this rush of excitement. Like, oh, that's the card that opens the door. Oh, I can use this to create this. What if I combine these two things? It works to combine them. Yes. The game has this way to not hold your hand, but still guide you in a method that makes you feel like all your successes are in fact your own and done by your own mental capabilities. There is an art, yes, an art in giving the player just enough to make their own conclusions and feel like it was them despite you guiding them. And this game pulls it off sometimes as well, if not better, than all of the original like Silent Hill and Resident Evil games. Now, of course, between each of these rooms are enemies. These enemies can be dealt with in a variety of ways, with said variety becoming more pronounced with time. Starting off, it's just your pistol, but stun batons are acquired rather early. These are single-use insta-kills, basically at close range. But of course, we want to conserve ammo because these girls can get back up. So we either run around them, utilize more powerful weapons, or burn their incapacitated bodies with thermite. Thermite will become quite handy in the future too, as enemies will increase in power and speed. At first, it's just the slow, screamy ones. Then the taller military ones start moving, and they get weirder and weirder. Signalis has much in store for you. The gameplay of Signalis doesn't really require much more explanation when we are discussing moment to moment. Low inventory space, room clearing, and the ever-present mental question of, is saving ammo worth taking a hit here? Like, these are staples of the survival horror genre. Where its gameplay falters a little bit is in regards to inventory management and I'd say some room readability. Like, the game has an in-universe explanation for your 6 inventory slots. The rule of 6, that is. This has to do with the regime you live under. We'll get to that in a moment, but long story short, you as a replica, aka a robot, can only carry so much on your person. That being said, 6 slots is just flat out too low. In the beginning, it isn't much of an issue, but later throughout the game, it becomes worse, particularly when you acquire the flashlight module. A weapon is a slot, spare ammo is a slot, a healing item is a slot, and the flashlight, which you basically need on your person at all times, is a slot. So gun, healing, ammo, and flashlight are basically the minimum requirements, 4 of your 6 inventory slots, and that is with only one gun. We're not talking thermite, we're not talking stun batons, or especially important quest items and keycards. This is apparently something the developers agree is too minimal, and they are working on fixing it. I think just making the flashlight an automatic upgrade would be perfect, but I wouldn't mind if the gun you're currently holding is basically moved below your portrait, acting as a specific slot 2. So you have effectively 2 more slots, but in a sense, not overall. It's a pretty genuine complaint near the end of the game, and not a nitpick. You will feel it, and hopefully it can be either modded or adjusted in the future. Inventory space being sacred is definitely a common theme in survival horror, but it isn't this restrictive. And if it is, you tend to unlock more space as you progress. You do not do that in Signalis, and I think that should be changed. As for room readability, this is more of a nitpick and more of a me thing. There's this great little note or piece of propaganda in the game that says if you didn't write it down, it never happened. This combined with a special photo taking module lets you pick up the game's ways to have you memorize important details, often for a puzzle that you'll need to remember something or the safe code of a combination. This phone module lets you basically take an in-game screenshot of it. But if you don't, it's basically like saying, hey, write everything down. Explore like a real explorer. Okay, I can't take something from this room right now, but I'll mark that it has 10mm ammo or a key card or something else. I like this dedication to real exploring. I like an in-universe item that lets you take screenshots basically, and it makes sense. You're a robot. My only issue is that there isn't any indicator that a room is picked fully clean. This is helped in the final area thanks to your best friend, giant bulging mass of flesh. But for the rest, remembering if a room has something in it is up to you. Now, I like that it's up to me. I appreciate that. The idea of writing it down on a piece of paper on the side is a cool kind of thing you can have your players do, but I wouldn't mind the tiniest bit of help to save some time. Resident Evil 2 has a fantastic room color system. When a room has stuff still in it, it is shaded a different color than when it is picked fully clean. That's all I want. Whether what's inside is ammo, an important item, or just even a single repair patch, I don't care. Just let me know that there is at least something in there, so I don't need to run through every single room in an area trying to remember what thing I forgot if I didn't screenshot it or write it down. Throughout most of the game, I just used Microsoft Paint and did the print screen tool on my keyboard for whatever I needed and whatever, but I will commend the dedication to immersion by having the screenshot creator in game. That's nice. And I do know that some would be a little more Puritan when they want just no, write it all down. That's the whole point. I get it, but that's kind of a pain in the ass. Also, you are kind of breaking immersion by, pulling yourself from the game to get a piece of paper and write stuff down. But when it comes to gameplay, these are really my only 2 complaints, and it can be fixed with 1 inventory slot and a slight room recolor. Now, while the inventory part isn't a minor complaint, the fixes are, and I'd love to see them implemented. The room part, I think, should just be opt-in. So if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. As for the rest of the gameplay, I'd say the game is paced rather well. It takes place in 3 major zones, and the tone and setting for each is well realized. As it is with many games like this, the intensity of the regions ramps up as the game progresses, which is why no matter where you go, it'll always be spooky red TV screen save station, my beloved. One thing Signalis adds to its puzzle system is its radio. Genius idea. At a point in the game, you can tune into specific frequencies that will aid you in accomplishing tasks or providing you with some more lore. The radio is just an incredible idea, and has so many more uses than you'd expect. One of the very early puzzles has staff of Sierpinski realize someone is broadcasting certain safe codes on radio frequencies. In a very red interrogation room, you can find these frequencies written out. Later, you can come to a safe, see an image on it like a tree, load up whatever the tree's frequency is, the cross-reference, and the numbers are spelt out to you. And if you're worried I'm giving you too many answers to the game's puzzles, don't worry. These all occur in the first hour. The radio will get far more interesting later. Moving past gameplay, let's do our best to talk and discuss the world of Signalis, because much like our discussion on Titanfall 1, it is built up phenomenally from the beginning. Now, obviously, we have that retro sci-fi nature to it, but it gets into the Lovecraftian eldritch horror pretty consistently. Even the game's opening words during the intro are ripped straight from Lovecraft. Now, the biggest inspirations you will see here are from Eastern Germany and other Big Brother regimes of a similar type. The Yusan regime is the main group at play here, and the world is covered in posters, pamphlets, and other paraphernalia that are dedicated to showing the importance and power of the state. There's a lot of items that have a very jingoist feel to them, and at many turns you can see the people being handled about as well as you'd expect from a regime with that kind of line of thinking, and much worse so if they stray from what the state wants. Eastern Germany is what I think about the most because the game is just covered in German from head to toe. But also with the developers being German, I don't think it's too far-fetched that maybe they had friends of family or maybe some relatives that were part of the Eastern Germany thing that happened back when. And side note, it's unfortunate that one of the best color combinations out there, red and black, is so synonymous with oppression. It's the main color palette of this game. Not just the in-universe regime though, but also some of the more Lovecraftian stuff too. Now, the Yusan regime is formulated by Gestalt human workers and a huge retinue of android workers. These androids vary in personalities and appearances and all serve different functions. We discussed the Elster model as being helpful with ship maintenance and repair, but there are also the Adler, Ara, Yule, Falk, Calibri, Mina, Star, and Storch models. All of these, minus the Adler model, are female and also can get really fucking tall. I gave a lot of credit to the guy who made Helltaker for basically just creating sharply dressed demon girls and making it canon so you could get free artwork. Someone followed in his footsteps. Super tall, white-haired android women. I see you. And I'm proud of you. Hi there, everybody. This is Future Bricky. I wanted to give a small shout out to the developers themselves because on Twitter, they constantly retweet excellent fan art of Signalis. But at the same time, the Signalis fan base has gone so deep into shit posting that I don't think they will ever recover. I present to you examples. This has been Future Bricky. Goodbye. Now, some of these characters you will meet throughout the game and provide not much discussion, but enough to make the world feel more lived in. Not to mention, it's so engrossing once you get down to the sound department. It's criminal that this game's sound is so stellar. I mean, it's not really criminal, but it's shocking. I don't know why or how this top-down survival horror game has weapon sounds that rival a AAA FPS, but it's so crisp. Listen. The enemy screeches are pretty good too. All the enemy movements and reactions have this unnerving feel to them. The spasming on the floor, the different sounds depending on enemy type, and the screeching combat music all at once. Just such an uncomfortable but excellent combination. It should also go without saying this game's soundtrack is very good. It has classical beats that are at odds with its sci-fi universe. You expect something more techno-based, especially with such a Ghost in the Shell look, but making the important tracks classical, I think enhances it rather than detracts. If you didn't pick it up, the title drop was, I used to call him Choppin', good old Choppin's Raindrop Prelude, and then all the other excellent classical stuff. Now, you'll notice that a lot of these tracks are not original pieces from the game, but actual classical music that's been around for a while. Signalis uses a lot of media from real life to enhance itself, not only in a visual and auditory, you know what I mean, senses, but to add a bit of context to its story. You'll see paintings from famous artists, symbols on objects, and we already discussed the King in Yellow at the start. All of it is here to lend understanding, or at least a breadcrumb to follow to understand what's going on in this game. Now, I must say, Signalis pulls a little bit too much from some places, especially Silent Hill 2, and it only bugged me a couple of times, but the difference between a reference and an homage or like inspiration from something is really boiled down to, does it enhance the product? The Stranger Things TV show is nothing but every single 80s movie and horror trope ever mixed into one thing, but it doesn't feel like we put this in there so you can have a quick quip and laugh at it kind of thing. It feels like it's there to actually make the story better. Signalis feels the same way. It's not just, hey, you see that Silent Hill 1 reference? No, this game borrows a lot from Silent Hill, 100%, but it's for the game, and so it isn't as annoying to deal with. Those of you who like Evangelion will probably see a lot more similarities too. I haven't seen that, so I don't know, but I've heard there's a lot of it there too. And actually, perfect timing with Evangelion. If it hasn't been made clear yet, Signalis is an artsy title. Whether it grabs you or not is up to your tastes. If you are the kind of person who enjoys an artsy, confusing, up to interpretation kind of game, then it might stick with you. And if you don't, well, you might struggle to get into it. The intro is not the only time it gets weird. There are bizarre dream sequences that put you in the first person and have you come back into the real world with tangible items. But are these dream sequences? Are they memories? Are they future events? The game will really get into that Silent Hill 2 side of things, like I mentioned, not just with the sheer volume of holes you jump through, but also doors opening on one side and you appearing at the other. Unreliable narrator is a great phrase for what you're going through. When chapters or segments and cutscenes aren't played in traditional forms, but are instead quick, flashing, surrealist imagery that, well, you know, probably won't make much sense at the time of seeing it. Now, if you're German or speak German, there is an appreciation that I think you'll have more than someone who doesn't, but I still enjoyed the game nonetheless. And I don't know how it's properly pronounced, but entering the Wiggly headroom and seeing sturb gave me a chuckle. I don't think it's pronounced that way, but just the idea of it being sturb makes me laugh. It gives me a giggle. A giggle. Yeah, giggles aren't really the export of a Signalis playthrough. Listen. When you think of your boy, you think of Bricky. Bricky likes video game wise what I like, right? Movie wise too, just media in general. Do you think exciting action Marvel movie, perhaps an enjoyable comedy? Or are we more into the depressed Slavic filmmaker whose whole family was murdered and decides to make a dark and horrible movie that leaves you hollow at the end? That's my shit. I love being hard. I love hard, depressing, sad media because it challenges your emotions and often how you think. Few things are sad to just be sad. Things are happy to be happy all the time. But if it's sad, depressing, normally there's a point there, or there's some reason why it's meant to make you feel hollow inside. They're trying to say something. Signalis is a game I really love. So it's not a game that's going to make you feel good. Not one bit. You thought this was going to be a wholesome lesbian love story? You know, this is going to be a survival horror game where the girl gets the girl and then we make fan art about all the other tall, sexy android women? That last part happened. Definitely, but come on now. Naive to the end. This is where we're getting into mega spoilers. Watch at your own risk. My first playthrough of Signalis left me with a tentative understanding of what happened. The whole thing you can find on the second channel. I'll put a link. Now, I got the memory ending with my slightly over 10-hour playthrough. It prompted me for an immediate second playthrough, which I did after a few days of digesting the game. See, it had developed brainworms. I couldn't get it out of my head. I thought about it again and again and again. I still am. Right now, I'm filming the video, so it's a little different, but I'm still thinking about this damn game. What it all meant, what it could mean. Like, replaying the game gave me a ton of new perspective. Everything started to make sense. It all began to piece itself together to the best it possibly can. Recontextualization is important, and while the game itself still has a lot of confusion, that second playthrough changed so much. For me, it's really just determining what I want to focus on. Because an often asked question in Signalis is, well, what do you think it meant? And that can just lead us down so many paths. We have Falk, who seemed to have a glimpse into the Red Eye being some kind of eldritch force, and by doing so seems to have corrupted herself with the memories of our Elster character. A replica that is actually created from the memories of a human, but our original human memories were lost, so we are actually the replica copy of replica copy. And since Falk is a godlike leader with a heavy bioresonance, aka mind control, telepathy, and telekinesis, our memory influence was spread across the locations she was in. We are also not the first Elster attempting to rescue Ariane, nor will we be the last, as we are either killed off by Adler, pushed down the elevator shaft with the rest of our like doomed to fail promises, or we are killed and doomed to fail in other means. Ariane herself was a character unfit for the system she was put into, someone with personality and a care for things like the arts and literature, objects suppressed by the Yuuzhan regime. So she took a job away from everyone on the Penrose program, in which she falls in love with us, our Elster partner, but she didn't find a habitable world, so you just both die a slow and painful death, being unable to fulfill your promise at the end. There are two general stories going on in Signalis, and that's the original Ariane and Elster, and then there's our Elster. The original Elster perished after being unable to find a suitable world in which the Yuuzhan regime basically says, Lamau get bodied, and Ariane is put in a cryopod to eke out a slow and miserable existence. Maybe, because Ariane is also bioresonant, I think. Our Elster, either by interacting with the gate or the Red Eye or something of that nature, has created a feedback loop of Elsters trying to uphold her promise of seeing her human love again, and yet never truly being able to do so, I think. There is also the fake Ariane, Alina, at the Sierpinski station, the first-person segments at the radio tower, school, and bus, and loads of imagery like the King in Yellow book or even the Isle of the Dead painting. What do I think happened? I'm not quite sure, actually. I can glimpse at a bit of the moment-to-moment stuff, right? Falk's slow corruption of the station, I got that. Adler's degeneration, I can parse, but the specifics elude me. But I don't know if it really matters much. Stephen King is my favorite author, but I think he's a little misrepresented. His books contain some paranormal or supernatural element, but this element is present as a hook. The killer clown, the haunted hotel, the vengeful car. But these are there to wrap the real story, being coming of age, domestic abuse, and being an outcast teenager. It's never about the clown. It's never about the hotel or about the car. And caring about the backstory of these things is your mistake. It's why his books aren't perfect, because when he tries to explain it, it tends to fall flat. Like, ooh, there's a good space turtle that's against the clown. Like, come on. Signalis has this same effect on me. Now, I don't think it has the weird issues that Stephen King books do. I think it's actually handled a lot better. But I find the specifics to be more there to enhance the story of these two individuals. The love story doomed to tragedy. The sheer will of someone and the lengths they will go to get to someone they love, to keep a promise. That's the real meat and potatoes. You got all the other stuff going around and it adds to the world and it's excellent, but the real thing is the promise. But the game has themes that go much farther than that. The side characters represent different aspects of these themes, and the more I play it, the more I begin to understand. German to English translations, breaking down individual freeze frames, this is all icing to a cake that is good enough on its own. It adds to it, but isn't needed. The story has me satisfied, but for every little detail, every extra piece of environmental storytelling that makes me go, wait a second, it just gets better. Signalis is one of the best games I played all year, and it has a profound effect on me by worming its way into my brain and refusing to leave. It's a picture-perfect example of the overwhelmingly positive Steam rating that I hold in such high regard. A product that, while containing a few noticeable flaws, has such passion and energy that resonates with me that I just cannot help myself but to recommend it. It is $20 on Steam and is also available on a few consoles. If you aren't into super artsy games, I can understand skipping, but for everyone else, you do yourself a disservice by not playing this title. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Before you go, I'd like to do a quick shout. Signalis is, of course, a game about lesbian love story and the bond between these two people. It feels timely for me to mention that we have a really big charity-based merchandise drop at orchidate.com. I mentioned it a bit on Twitter, but we have our new logo in a rainbow LGBT, trans pride, Ukrainian pride, and Turkish pride, all available in black, white shirt and hoodie. For 2023, 23% of all the profits of all of these are going to various charities that are connected to each of those pride things. You can find which charity it is in the description of every single one of those products. And so I'm very clear, this is 23% of profits. I'm not upcharging you. I'm not asking you to pay extra. This is the money I would have made that is going to these various charities that I would like to support. So if you'd like to pick any of these up or follow the new Twitter account associated with Orchidate, both are linked down in the description. Give it a look, keep yourself updated, the whole thing. And thank you so much, not only for your charity, but for your support. Go buy Signalis. It's a great game. And I will see you very soon for another video. Bye-bye.
Come on. Obviously, you're a skater.